Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Today we'll be covering another Framer tutorial, and we'll be going over how to create this effect in which you page through a carousel with a parallax background. So you have an image in the background that's moving at a different speed with the container, and then you can simply swipe through, and we'll be showing you how to do that. So first of all, let's open up Framer. Command N, we have Framer open to create a new file. The interesting about this project is that we will not be using the design tab, rather we'll be using only the code tab. So let's switch to code. Let's change it to iPhone 8. Command S to save this project. I'm gonna call this page.starting. And you can find the starter files in the channel description, in the video descriptions. So first of all, let's familiarize ourselves with the built-in snippets that Framer has provided. So Framer has this page component, so you click on snippets, components, page. You'll see an example of a swiping through page component like this. It's not really built for the iPhone, so just use this as an example of how this page element can work. But essentially for this project, we'll be deleting all of this and creating our own. So a page component is simply a component that allows you to create a swipeable interaction, usually left to right or right to left horizontally, that's common in mobile apps. So what you write is you give it a name, so it's common to use page equals to new page component. Now Framer has these kind of snippets built in, so it's going to recognize that you want to create a component. So what I did there was I typed that out and press enter. Remember to press tab, otherwise the syntax won't work. It's really important you keep the spacing and tabs correct. So you tap once to indent it so that Framer knows that you're talking about interactions that relates to this line you just wrote. So, okay, page component equals new page component. Let's find a size. So size is screen. All right. You just see that expanded over the entire canvas. This is because the screen is this big. So when we hover on size page, we see that the page has a default width and height of the entire screen. All right, that was easy. Next, let's interact with it. So now you can swipe it left and right, up and down, but that's not necessarily what we want. We just want the left and right without the up and down. So what you write is scroll, vertical, false. This way, see, now you can only swipe left and right, despite trying to move up and down. This component is not moving with it. So that's what we want. Notice how there's an indent, there's one tab here. It's very important that you get these tabs right, because without these correct syntax, the function here does not work. So that's what we have for a page. Next, we're gonna define the cards inside the page in which you're gonna swipe through. So these are the containers that the image is gonna later be contained within. So we can write them out individually. There are 3 of them, so 1, 2, and 3, so on and so forth on the right. But we can use a loop, a for loop, to make it much easier. So for loop is a default programming syntax that allows you to cycle through iterations of a program. So what I did here is I wrote for letter I, this is just a placeholder, in the sequence of 0 to 2, do these things. So we can write a print to see print, let's see, print I. So in this case, when we refresh, this is, so Framer runs through vertically, so it ran through page, it created the page in the background, and then right after that, it's going through this. So for I in 0 to 2, so first it's like, okay, the first I is 0, so it prints I, which is 0 here. The next I is 1 in between 0, 1, 2. Then prints 1, and the last I is 2, so it prints 2. So that's how this function works. And this will allow us to create 3 different cards very easily. So that we can simply name card equals to new layer, enter tab. So we're going to assign some properties to this card. So size, screen, and as you can see on the right here, 1, 2, 3 cards are created because this is within the loop. It's within the loop because it's nested under here with the tab. But we will assign more properties to this. So parent page.content. This content is really important. So when you just say page, it's not enough. You say page.content because for special components like this, you have to put it within the content layer so that allows Framer to capture the scroll and the drag movements. So you see on the side here that content, underneath content, the 3 cards are in here. So you can see that. You can't really see it, but this is already nested within the right structure. So, but they're not necessarily in the right spot. So let's give them some x values. So x screen.width times I. What this does is that for the first one, when I is 0, right? So the screen width times 0 is still 0. So 0 is here, remember, this is the 0 line for x. So in this case, the first card is here. So let's verify that. First card is here, 0, 0. Second card is nested to the side. X is 375. This is because the screen width is 375 times 1. Why is it 1? Because, well, it's the second iteration. So the I becomes 1 because it's in between 0 and 2. And the third iteration, the card becomes has an X of 750 because screen width times 2 in this case is 750. Again, this is because I becomes 2 in the third iteration. All right, now that we have the cards in place, let's just verify that we can scroll through them. Now, because they're the same color, we can't see that in fact they're moving. So let's assign them some random color. So you can simply type background color utils.random color parentheses. So this function is a built-in Framer function that the team at Framer already created for us, so that for us to quickly pick a color to see, you know, what's in the background. So in this case, okay, now we see that, hey, the 3 cards are in place. Great. What do we do next? Well, next is that we want to make the images appear. So we can simply go image equals to new layer with screen.width. So we repeat the same thing, height, screen.height, and in this case they have a parent. So you can see that the images are already created, but they are not nested in the right place. That's why we're writing a parent for them. So parent equals to card. This is because for each card we create, we're creating an image right after. So for the next iteration, it's going to forget about the first card and then just put the correct image in the correct card that's right before this image was created. So in this case, you'll see that through each iteration, a card has a nested image that's contained as a child element. So here, 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 and we can do image. So this is the syntax for creating an image. We can use our own image, in which case we'll just drag and drop, or in this case we'll simply use a built-in default image function. Again, like random color, there's a random image. Utils, I think it's utils.random image. Yes. There we go. Boom. That's exactly what we want, except that I noticed that the image are still in the top right corner. We don't necessarily want that. We want the images to be at least on the y-axis to be nested in the center. Now, because the images are exactly the same size as the card, it's going to create a problem, because when we parallax it, there's going to be a gap on the left and the right when it's moving out of position. So we have to make these bigger. So 1.3, and there we go. Now that we can see the images, so if we go back to it, the first image now has a width of 488, and that's bigger. That's what we want. So let's do that. All right, so to make sure that this works, we need to add a clip. So this is a masking effect in which the image will not overfill the container. Right now you can't see it because each new card is overlapping on top of, is covering the overflow of the image. So with this included, each image will be clipped inside the card container. So that's a key line you have to add. So after this, we can sort of just figure out how to do the parallax next. Maybe we should create some variables. So let's say card1 equals to page.content. So we're just giving a name to the cards already created. Right now they have the same name. That's not necessarily good, because we want to be able to uniquely identify each card so that we can assign movement to the images inside. Dot sublayer. This is just trying to select the sublayers inside the content. So what we're doing here is that page.content, which is this level here, one level deeper, there are 3 sublayers. So we use this syntax to select the first one, 0, which is this card right here. So we're giving that card a name of card1. So it's not showing up here, but in Framer it knows that that's the name for this card. So let's just keep track of that there. So on and so forth. We can use a for loop to do this, but we can just copy and paste as well, since this is just a small 3-line thing, so it's not a big deal. So we change the names as well as the selection. So it always starts from 0. So 0 is here, 1, 2. So these are the sequences of the card inside this content element. All right. Now, why did we do this? We did this so that we don't have to write a huge line every time we want to find out the position of the images inside each card. So after this, we can simply say, we can simply give some default values to the images, because we don't necessarily want the images to be always on the left, right? We want it to be in the center, maybe a little bit to the right, so that when we swipe over, the images can move in the opposite direction into place, into the center. So let's just give the images of a starting value. So card1 dot sublayers. So notice that how now we have the cards, we can go into the sublayers and select the sublayers, which are the images. In this case, subline 0 dot x. So we're gonna say the first card should always have a value of a centered x, so that the image, if we look here, has a, okay, so negative 56. Okay, I think this is because there's 56 on each side, so that because this image is much wider than the parent card, so that's how it's shaping out to be. So that's the position of that. Now for the second image, because we don't see it first, we can give it more of a bigger sort of bigger margin on the right, on the left. going to say -100. So we're doing this because, see, notice how the second image it's protruding all the way over here. This is because when we move it into place, we want the second image to be relatively still so that it's not moving as heavily as the first or as the container. You'll see what I mean when we finish this section. So we do so on and so forth for the 3 images. Notice how they're all in sublayer 0 because this is the first and the only sub layer inside each card layer. So by default, they'll have a sub layer index of 0, right? So that's how we have this. And the third card, of course, will have it's not showing up, but it's like the X value is in the center, but we're moving that value by 200 over here. So when we move it into place, it's not, see how it's like protruding on the side here? And this gap is because card 2 is shifted over by 100. This will be the effect we want once we put in the actual parallax. So now let's do this. Let's give it an interactive element. So in this case, I'll move. So this is a function that captures the movement of page when you drag or swipe and when you move it. So let's do this. Print. I'm moving. All right. See? As soon as you started dragging, I'm moving. Is being printed. So in fact, this is working. Now, what we want to do now is that we want to give new X values to the images. So what we can do now is to simply create a variable inside onMove. We can say when this page component is moving, card 1 image X equals to utils.modulate. This is a function that captures one value and then translates into another value. So I'll show you how this works. So in this case, we'll say card1.screenFrame.x. All right, let's pause for a second. Let's introduce what does screenFrame do. So command / comments this section out, and let's simply print card1.screenFrame.x. I'm pressing tab to autocomplete, by the way. So I was typing screenFrame. I press tab and then that autocompletes that. So what this does is that it captures the value of card 1, which is the first card. It's on screen X value. So right now it's showing you that, okay, according to the screen, this card is about 300 pixels off to the left. And now it's 275, and now it's 750. So it's always measuring the value of the card, how far it's traveling from the screen. Now, if we remove the screen frame, it becomes always 0 because it's just printing out its relative X, which is the X within the page container. So because the container is moving and the card is actually not, so this only captures the absolute 0 that the card is always at. But in fact, we want to capture the screen frame X. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, we can go back to this function where we're modulating the X value. So in this case, we're capturing the X value, the screen frame X, and we're translating that into a different thing. So there are 2 square brackets here. The first is the value in which the screen frame X can go. So the screen frame X has a max of 0, right? It starts at 0, and it goes to a minimum of, let's type this out, of negative 750. And then we want to translate this into a value that's suitable for the X of the image. So for the first image, we know that when we did this earlier, when we aligned centered, it has a X value of minus 56. So that's the starting point. And the ending point, we want that to be somewhere. So we want it to shift over a bit, but not by a whole lot. So let's give it 100. So this means that the relative X of this will become 100. So it'll be shifted over here. But we won't see the gap in the background because by then our container will have moved over. So let's see this in effect. It's not moving. Why is it not moving? Well, I think the reason is quite simple. It's we captured this value, but we didn't put it inside the actual X. So we didn't assign it to the image's X value. So let's print it out first. Let's make sure we're doing things correctly. So seems about right. So this seems about the right number. And let's put that inside the X. So the first one is card1 dot sublayer, which is the image dot X. Let's do this. See that? See the parallax there? Now we won't see the gap on this side because by the time it moved over, it's already all the way over here. So that's good. Boom. Perfect. Now we just simply do the same thing for the second card. So card 2. We can't use the same card 1 X value because card 2 has a different starting point. So we want to adapt this to card 2. But we don't have to adapt this because it just needs one reference point for the modulator to work because they're all moving in the same direction at the same speed. For the container they are. So we just have to set a different starting point. So what do we do here? We can give it a starting point. Actually, yeah, the starting point has to be the same because chances are you will see a jump if you move very fast if it's not the same. So let's give it the same starting point. Why can't I type here? Weird. All right, I can type here now. Can't seem to type. All right, now we can type. And let's give it a value of, see, 100 was working for this, but I don't think 100 will work for this. I think a 56 will work because it's the value that's on the other side. Actually, I think it should be more because since this is when the second image is at 750, which means when the first card is at 750, which means the first card is all the way over here, and the second card is also hidden, so it should be also 100. All right, so there's a little bit of math involved. Sometimes you have to do math in your head, and let's do the third value here. Let's give it some space on the bottom here. All right, so in this case, we want to change this to 3. Now it's starting at minus 200, and in this case, we don't necessarily want the third image to go off bound because this is going to show the gap on here. So we want to do 0. All right, let's put this into effect. Card 2 and card 3, and then let's change this to card 3, card 2. Huh, interesting. Nice. So that parallax, that's precisely the effect we want. Boom. There we go. This is how you create a simple parallax effect inside Framer's page component. Thanks for watching.